Good evening, ladies, and welcome back to Kindest Milk, where I like to share my own breastfeeding journey and help mothers reach their individual breastfeeding goal. It is quite late already and the lighting isn't great. The kids have gone to bed, but as I had promised you that I would chat to you about combined feeding this week, I thought let me sit down and talk to you, because I don't know when I will next get the time for a sit-down video. So what do we mean by combined feeding? What's the definition of combined feeding? Combined feeding is also sometimes called mixed feeding, and it is when you combine breastfeeding with formula feeding. And with breastfeeding as the biological normal feeding method for our species, the WHO recommend exclusive breastfeeding for all babies across the globe, all babies of the age 6 months and under. Here in Ireland, the last perinatal statistics report from 2016 revealed that about 60% of all babies discharged from the maternity hospitals receive breast milk, whilst 49.5% are exclusively breastfed on discharge. Healthcare professionals in general aim to support the mother to provide the maximum amount of breast milk possible to their babies. But the reality also shows that a lot of mothers practice combined feeding. Sometimes this is out of necessity or medical reasons. Sometimes it's the maternal choice. It's what mom feels is right for her and her baby. And sometimes it is a decision that is made based on the information available to the mother and at the time and depending on her environment. Healthcare professionals are there to give evidence-based information, but also to support the mother with her decision. So when it comes to the practice of combination feeding, your combination feeding routine will depend a little bit on the reasons as to why you're combination feeding. If it is because of a low milk supply or breast hypoplasia, which is when you find that you might not have quite as much glandular tissue within your breast, then it is best to link in with a lactation consultant to work out an individual feeding plan for you and your baby. In the case of low milk supply, it can sometimes be helpful to do a couple of transfer weights with your healthcare provider. This is when you check the baby's weight before and after a feed over a few feeds to calculate the amount of formula top-up necessary, so that you don't give more formula top-up than necessary. And then your lactation consultant will also establish whether you need to give a top-up with every feed or just once a day. You guys, I'm really sorry I had to change my position because my battery is running low and I had to plug in my charger to be able to finish this video. But what I wanted to say is, in case where supplementation is recommended, where possible, the mother's own expressed breast milk is preferred over donor milk and formula. And know that you can give supplementation via a bottle or a supplemental nursing system at the breast. If it's the case that you desire to give your baby both breast milk and formula milk as your final feeding goal, try breastfeeding exclusively for the first few weeks if you can, ideally for the first 6 weeks, just to establish your milk supply and also reduce your baby's risk of developing a cow's milk allergy. Once you offer your baby formula, they'll take less of your breast milk. Based on the principles of supply and demand, your body will start to regulate your milk supply. When you're combination feeding, it is usually easier to have a routine for that formula feed, meaning that it's usually easier to pick a time of day that you want to give the formula feed rather than topping up with formula after every breastfeed. So for example, a lot of moms would choose to replace the evening feed and perhaps let the partner take over bottle feeding the baby in the evening rather than topping up after every breastfeed. Essentially, it's the same principle as when you're starting to introduce solids. You're slowly replacing the breast milk with different food source, and in that case would be the formula. If you feel engorged, you can apply cool compresses in between feeds, you can massage and hand express a little bit, or wear cabbage leaves in your bra in between feeds. It might also take your baby a little bit of adjustment to learn to feed from the bottle, and it can help to use the paste bottle feeding technique. I've previously made a video about the paste bottle feeding technique, which I will link here. It can also help to wait till breastfeeding is established well and until your baby has learned to feed from the breast, and then usually that also will make the switch between breast and bottle easier. Sometimes baby's digestion might also take a little bit of time to adjust, and sometimes babies develop a little bit of wind or discomfort temporarily. Some babies do get more easily constipated as the formula milk is not as easily digested as breast milk, and if that's the case, do consider increasing or offering the breast a little bit more again. Sometimes mums who exclusively formula feed and their babies become constipated, they do offer a little bit of cool boiled water, but other than that, no other drinks are recommended to help with the constipation. If it's really bad, do see your GP and for some advice. Other things to consider with combined feeding is the type of formula. And with regards to the type of formula, healthcare professionals are not permitted under the WHO Code of Marketing of breast milk substitutes to promote a particular type of formula. They are all regulated under EU law and are all pretty much very similar. Then there is the cost of formula, the safety of your local water supply and access to boiling water, and also the cost of equipment and sterilizing the equipment. And then there is what else to consider is vitamin D. So usually advised when you're breastfeeding to give your baby a daily dose of 5 micrograms of vitamin D. If your baby is receiving less than 300 mils of formula per day, you're advised to give your baby the daily dose of vitamin D. Always check with your doctor or public health nurse before you make any changes to your baby's vitamin D supplementation. Another point of interest as well is the amount of formula you should be offering your baby when you're replacing a breast feed with formula or 2 breastfeeds. What is the guidance? So the HSE guidance that you'll find on the HSE website or the HSE My Child site is 150 mils per kilogram per day for babies 0 to 6 months old, and 120 milliliters per kilogram per day for babies 7 to 12 months old. You will also find this guidance on the tin of formula. So let's say if you're making up a formula feed of 120 mils and your baby decides to only drink 100 mils initially, that's absolutely fine. Try not to force the feed. If your baby wants a little dessert within the hour of starting the feed, then that's fine. You can offer the rest of the feed within an hour of first starting the feed. With regards to formula preparation and preparing a safe formula feed, I will probably do a separate video on that in the future. If you're considering only the odd time or very few occasions to formula feed just because you have to be away from your baby and you haven't managed to build up a stash, try to then, if you get the chance when you're out to express your breast milk, or when you come home and your baby is not ready for breastfeed, also consider expressing breast milk or feeding and expressing breast milk, so that you protect your supply and that your supply is not dwindling when you're only giving the odd formula feed. So I hope you found this video helpful. Drop me a question if you want me to clarify anything, and otherwise until next time, I hope your breastfeeding journey is going well.